to line up faster. Yes! 3 down! You're catching.
Hello everyone, I'm CoolGuy, welcome back, and today we're going to be covering the Vanguard Pinnacle weapon for Season 5, the Loaded Question Fusion Rifle. The lore's really good on it. The text reads, "Hey, you seen Cade around? Tell him his gun's ready, Banshee 44. It's kind of too long to read, but the gist of it is that Cade comes to Banshee with the idea for a weapon, a fusion rifle. He wants racing stripes, he wants a bottle opener on it, lots of good stuff inside. But you get this quest from Zavala. You need 500 fusion rifle kills, 1,000 arc kills, and 40 strike or nightfalls completed. I use the main ingredient, which is Arc, Thunderlord, Arc Strider, the Raiden Flux. You can farm the Mindbender Strike with the Fanatic, and at the end, after the chest pops, you just rock yourself to do the encounter again. There's a lot of ads in there. Personally, I had a group of 3 doing the Lake of Shadow Strike, just running through it 5 or 6 minutes per run. Once done, you return to Zavala to obtain the reward. Before we get into this review, I give this fusion good marks and a bad mark. Throughout this review, the goal is to understand the weapon. I put well over 30 hours in-game time with this fusion. My main conclusion is that it really does have a place. It can be great, and I'll explain why, but something to really keep in mind is it's going to be depending on the player. This simply just might not be your thing. It might not be your playstyle. You might not find any worth in it, but there is a theme to the loaded question. My philosophy on weapons is that they're kind of like tools to get a job done. If you start looking at this weapon like a tool in your toolbox for a certain job, you can optimize its usage, you can really start to appreciate it. The Loaded Question is a high impact frame arc fusion rifle, slow firing, high damage, it's more accurate when stationary and aiming down sights. It has a red dot MOA 2. For the perks, we have ionized battery, greatly increases mag size, greatly decreases reload speed. Autoloading Holster, holster it and it automatically reloads after a short time. Its main perk, the perk that it's own, that no other perk is like, is Reservoir Burst. When the battery is full, your next burst deals additional damage and causes enemies to explode on death. Reservoir Burst is the main draw to the weapon. It's a top tier perk. When you look at this roll, it has poor perk synergy, and that's solely due to ionized battery. This gets your magazine to 7, slows your reload. If this perk is changed at a later date, I'm all for that. With this perk, you need 7 to proc Reservoir Burst to get it in the mag. A magazine of 5 would have been a little bit better, but put it this way, if Reservoir Burst, the main perk on this fusion rifle, could roll on all fusion rifles, and you get a brand new one, it has Reservoir Burst, but you saw it had ionized battery, you would instantly delete it, no questions asked, because it's the complete opposite of what you want to do with this weapon. But for now, that's alright, we'll work with what we have. Autoloading Holster is perfect with the way you can use it. Reservoir Burst applies 33% more damage to the bolts. There are 7 of them. If that number sounds familiar, it's similar to another perk, Kill Clip. With the way you can use it, it makes sense to think of this as Kill Clip. The damage is the same in both PvP and PvE. It's a straight 33% across the board. The second part of it is an enhanced elemental explosion. It's a fusion rifle with Kill Clip and Firefly. The explosion itself has a large area of effect, and most things in its way fall to it. If there's red bars, they go down, yellow bars get chunked. This is what we want out of this weapon, and I'll bring this up when I reviewed the Gambit Pinnacle reward Breakneck. These Pinnacle weapons are niche, every single one of them. They do one thing great, but not all things. The Redrix, great with Desperado, but you need a headshot to proc it. Without it, it's kind of a pedestrian weapon. Luna's Howl, the best 1v1 weapon in the game, but it lacks range. Once outside of that range, you can easily outshoot it. The Breakneck, really great against ads, not so good against bosses. It has a place though. The Mountaintop, the new Pinnacle grenade launcher for PvP, is probably the most niche of them all. They have a specific use. If you don't do what you need to do with them, they're near worthless. These Pinnacle rewards, they're special in a special way for specific things, and that leads us to the Loaded Question. Unfortunately, the Loaded Question requires you to add to it, where the other Pinnacle weapons don't. It requires you to commit to it, whereas other weapons in the game don't. This is a PvE weapon first and foremost, and we'll talk about PvP here in a moment, but its purpose is in PvE for burst ad clearing. That's how we want to use this. We now have forges with Black Armory, Horde mode, we have things like Gambit. We come to the question of, is this thing worth it? I'm going to tell you yes, it's a worthy addition to your toolkit to have for certain scenarios. The Loaded Question is fantastic in Gambit in the forges. It shreds through yellow bars in the forge depending on your light level and the mod you put on it. The yellow bars in the forge add time to the encounter. You cut right through them and get the time that you need. Reservoir Burst is the only thing about this fusion rifle that makes it special. It's the only thing. This is where you make the choice as a player. I found that this weapon you really have to commit to for it to run at its peak potential. For some players, again, this might not be their thing. They might not like how this weapon works, and that's a valid opinion and argument. That's also what's really nice about Destiny. There are options in the game. But if you do use this weapon, if you want to do well with this weapon, you are committing to using Reservoir Burst as much as possible when the situation arises. It's one of those things that you simply can't do halfway. Trust me on this. This fusion can be worthless, this fusion can be just alright, it can be good, or it can be great, all depending on how far you commit. So starting off for PvE, armor perks are key. Fusion Rifle Reserves, Fusion Rifle Scavenger. Reserves are base at 16, 7 in the mag, 9 in the reserve. You add one Fusion Rifle Reserve perk, the total count goes to 19, 7 in the mag, 12 in the reserve. When you add on the second reserve perk, you get 22 total shots, 7 in the mag and 15 in reserve. And you go in between Fusion Rifle Scavenger and reserves, depending on where you're playing. The reserves allows more shots for the reservoir burst, the scavenger gets you more per brick. For PvE, you want reserves. PvP, it's going to be scavenger, and we'll talk about that in a bit. The armor pieces to look at for these perks are the helmet, that has Fusion Rifle Reserves, as well as Light Reactor, that's gaining more bonus super energy on Fusion Rifle kills. The gauntlets have Fusion Rifle Scavenger, Fusion Rifle Loader, the chest, Rifle Unflinching, legs, Fusion Rifle Dexterity, and the class item can roll Fusion Rifle Scavenger and Fusion Rifle Reserves in the same node. Every class has a way to keep the reservoir burst at the forefront. Titan has the barricade, Warlock has the ludification boots, Hunter has the dodge. Hunter also has the Young Hamkara grasps. With those, a melee reloads the weapon. It also has the dragon shadow. So with each one, there's a way to get the big burst into strike bosses, powerful enemies. If you want to do that, you can do so. That's one way to use it. It does decently as far as DPS and the overall damage when you start utilizing only the reservoir burst back to back to back to back. This is where having two Fusion Rifle Reserve perks really help. The second way is a little bit more of a traditional way. It's to go up to adds, shoot the burst into the area, clear it out, switch to your primary weapon, clear adds with your primary. Once you hear Autoloading Holster proc, you switch back and you use it when need be. You can pair Loaded Question with Ace of Spades if you want, but Breakneck is one of the best options, or something with Rampage. When it comes to boss time, you pull out the Sleeper, the Whisper, 1,000 Voices. Every now and again, you use that Reservoir Burst for damage on the boss, or to clear adds in the boss encounter. It's all about that burst damage to a group that makes it really special, because they can rush you, you can pull out the fusion, and just delete the area. I have a major mod on my Loaded Question, and that's going to be my mod recommendation. It depends on your light level, but it one-shots a lot of the yellow bars. If it is a high tier yellow bar, it does nice chunk damage with a reservoir burst. The third way is to keep using the burst. That involves shooting it, reloading, and chambering 7, and shooting again. You can do it with no reload perks, but everything helps. On my Shards of Galanor, I do have Fusion Rifle Loader. It's a really great piece for PvE and PvP for me. Now that Fusion Rifle Loader greatly helps if you use it this way, going from one shot to the next. It isn't necessary, but it does help tremendously. Again, all of this, that theme, it depends on how far you want to commit to it. Now this is actually my preferred way of using Reservoir Burst, because when you think about the details of Loaded Question, and think about what's really happening when you chamber that Reservoir Burst, I'm okay taking the time to do a reload, because when you think of its damage, it is kill clip. But it also has the benefit of Firefly. With any weapon with kill clip, you have to get a kill, you have to reload, get kill clip going, and then you have a small window of extra damage. But with Loaded Question, it has no timer. You just run around with kill clip at your disposal. So when you think about it that way, when you approach it that way, it's a great weapon. There's nothing wrong with shooting a shot, reloading, and shooting again, because it's kill clip on demand when you do have reserves. It's amazing. That's 7 bolts coming out with a lot of damage. You can put Fusion Rifle Dexterity on your boots, that helps as well. It's going to be up to you, but it's not as crucial as having Fusion Rifle Scavenger or Fusion Rifle Reserves. I do recommend the Major mod though, as I mentioned earlier. Minor spec on your primary, major spec on the Fusion, it's perfect. When you use this Fusion in PvE with Reservoir Burst, depending on the enemy type, it might not be strong enough to down a yellow bar. Think Scion versus Colossus. Even a Sleeper doesn't one-shot a Colossus sometimes. So even though this Fusion has 33% more damage, it won't get those big enemies. But you can use Reservoir Burst to do a sudden chunk damage on them if you want. The most important tip though is your placement. Every time you're looking at a group, pick out the weakest link. Thrall, Base Cabal, a red bar. When you do this, you're guaranteeing the kill and in turn guaranteeing the explosion. This is what you want to do. The Reservoir Burst works on each kill, so if 2 or 3 bolts hit other enemies, say some of the bolts go behind the target that you're aiming at, those are going to explode as well if you kill them. In a scenario where there's a yellow bar and a lot of red bars, there's a chance that if you shoot that shot at the powerful enemy, you're not going to down him. It's going to do decent damage, but it's not going to get him. But if you kill the ad next to him, that explosion is going to kill the ads around and do damage to the yellow bar because of the explosion. I love its application in PvE for this. Pick and choose your target, do the damage to the area, then mow down the big threat. Let's switch gears to the Crucible. Now in PvP, I can confidently tell you that this thing has a place. This isn't a popular opinion at all, but I'm going to walk you through it. First game I played with it, I had a wee run out of medals. I had 15 kills alone with Reservoir Burst. That footage is going to be in the background right now. I've gone on long streaks with Loaded Question, gotten a lot of kills with Reservoir Burst on those streaks. It's very special. It goes all the way full circle back to committing to the weapon. And the number one thing to have is Fusion Rifle Scavenger. PvE is reserves, PvP is Fusion Rifle Scavenger. Again, found on your gauntlets and class item. And most of the background footage I have on only one piece, later I find a cloak to add on the second piece. There's a huge difference here, and it affects your entire game. If you have no scavenger perks, every single time you pick up a green brick, you're only going to get 1 round. If you have on a scavenger perk, you get 2 rounds. If you have on 2 scavenger perks, you get 3 rounds per brick. So the 2 or 3 rounds, this is where you have to be. This is where you need to be when you use Loaded Question in the Crucible. Every time you spawn in with 2 rounds. And if you spawn in with no perks and start just grabbing special ammo bricks, you're gonna have to gather 5 special ammo bricks. If you're doing that, I can see where you think that this is really bad in the Crucible because you have a very long road to even get the perk going. You're rarely gonna get Reservoir Burst. And again, the true thing that's special about this fusion rifle is that Reservoir Burst, so you have to set yourself up for success. There's the other side of the debate. I do see players not liking that, committing to the weapon, but as I said earlier, unfortunately you have to. When I run mine, I have on Light Reactor on my helmet for bonus super energy on fusion rifle kills, fusion rifle scavenger, fusion rifle dexterity, fusion rifle loader. And if I'm not running Shards of Galanor, I double up on the scavenger perks. When you don't run scavenger perks, something like the Rental is 100% better, no questions asked. My Rental is really good. I have Snapshot, Rangefinder, Range Perk, Range Masterwork. It's a beast. On a base level, way better than the Loaded Question, but just like in PvE, the Loaded Question has that special quality. This perk right here, Reservoir Burst, is an instant delete button. That's exactly what it is, and that's why I use this fusion and why I like it. Because if someone's coming at you, it will kill them. There's no faint ghost bolts. If you miss some of the burst, it still gets them most of the time. You have to be really off, and when that happens, they're still pretty hurt. If players are grouped up, you can collateral them. The damage goes from the base 48 per bolt to 63. It's a 3-bolt kill out of 7, a total of 441 damage, and damage caps at 300 with rockets, which is what you would most certainly see if it showed all the damage in the game. So put all that into perspective on how powerful this high impact fusion burst is. The issue is getting there, right? Getting to Reservoir Burst. You have to trust me that it really isn't that bad at all. I've seen a lot of people saying that, it's bad because you have to have 7, but here's the deal. I use the term committing to Reservoir Burst throughout this review. That's because I want to drive that home, because you must do that for this weapon to perform well. And by committing, it really isn't that bad. In the end, it's 2 nodes on your armor. That's it. That's what I mean by committing. 2 nodes on your armor. So for the best results in PvP, you need to run 2 fusion rifle scavenger perks. That means you only need 2 bricks. You spawn with 2 shots. Sometimes on spawn, I just gather 2 bricks immediately because they're right there to pick up, and bam, I have Reservoir Burst. Sometimes in my first engagement, I see a teammate die next to me, I get the kill on the opponent that killed him, grab the bricks from the teammate, grab the brick from the guy that I just killed, and then I have Reservoir Burst. The 2 bricks give you 8 shots. That's 2 Reservoir Burst shots, and as I said earlier, Reservoir Burst is an instant delete button. So you start getting kills with that Reservoir Burst, you now have 10 shots. And so on and so on. You're just getting a kill, reloading, having kill clip on demand, and just go. But you do have to set yourself up for success in both PvE and PvP. To say that this is a bad weapon when you don't commit to it is not really a fair assessment. And again, it's just 2 nodes on your armor. So any of you out there that have tried it in PvP or PvE and thought it was kind of lackluster, try putting on the 2 scavenger perks, try putting on the 2 reserve perks, and you might just like it. I see getting Reservoir Burst as kind of a non-issue. You just need 2 bricks. That's my personal opinion. And when you have that, when you have Reservoir Burst, you can start doing things that the Rental and other weapons simply cannot do. You're running around with an on-demand kill clip on a high-impact fusion rifle. Now, as far as supers, it cannot one-shot a super, and I feel that that's a shame. Then again, most things can't one-shot a super in PvP. It does 24 per bolt with Reservoir Burst, so a total of 168 damage. It gets them close, it gets them really close, but it doesn't one-shot them. I've been covering this game for 3 or 4 years, something like that. There's something truly special about a high impact fusion rifle with kill clip and dragonfly. There really is. Now this weapon and your experience with it has a direct relationship. The more you add to it, the better the weapon is. The more you leave off of it, the worse the weapon is. Whether you're using it to down a boss with, let's say, the Lunification boots, or utilizing the Autoloading Holster by shooting, switching, shooting, or doing the reload after each shot strategy, none of them are wrong. The weapon has massive potential. I personally take it everywhere. They did a fantastic job with it. The only bad mark I give has to do with that ionized battery, man. But as we've gone over, we just work around it and we work with it. If they ever do change the perk, this fusion gets a lot better. But as it sits right now, it is a tool worthy of being in your toolbox. I would like to thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, remember to hit the subscribe button. For those of you guys out there that are subscribed, I thank you so much. You rock. What are your thoughts on the Loaded Question? How long did that quest take you? It wasn't that bad in my opinion. We just had a good time. Have you tried it with 2 fusion perks yet, whether it be reserves in PvE or scavenger in the Crucible? Let's talk about it in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.